Hey, Lindsay, how are you?
Hey, Aubrey, doing great. How's it going?
Excellent. I'm curious, what verb tense do you use when telling a story?
I feel like I use the present tense a lot. A
Yes,
lot.
just the present
But
tense?
not just the present tense, though. Not just that. I mean, that would be kind of weird. I think I move between the present tense, the past tense, the present perfect tense, the past
Totally.
perfect
Yes. We use
tense.
them all, right? It depends on what we're saying. I agree.
Yeah.
Present tense comes up a lot because you're trying to pull someone into the story, make them feel like they were there with you. So we move into the
Yes,
present tense, but we use subjunctive, conditional. We use all of the tenses when
we
telling a
do.
story. So you can't just think this happened in the past. I'm using past simple tense. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, we just move seamlessly in and out of them, right? That's the key. We did do an episode recently on reporting our speech and our thoughts, and I shared how I ran into Billie Eilish in LA,
Yes.
which is very cool.
So cool.
So
I
so
told my
go check.
daughter, she's like, "Oh, I wish you would have gotten a photo with her." Like she
I
loves Billie Eilish.
Does she really? Yeah, I'm
Yes.
not like I don't know her music, but I was not gonna be the one of the ones
No.
chasing after her. No, thank
Right? We
you.
wanna let her have some privacy, and my daughter
Yeah.
probably wouldn't either. She's so shy, but she thought that was
No.
so cool that you saw her.
That's cool, that's
Yeah.
cool, love that. All right, guys, before we get deeper into the episode, make sure you share this show with one friend, right? There is a way to share your episode in Spotify or Apple. Think of one friend. Well, who should we think of, Aubrey? Who would be an ideal listener of All Ears
Yeah.
English? Yeah.
Ideally, someone else you know who's learning English, right?
Mhm.
Who speaks at a pretty high level like you, who would enjoy these podcasts. I love that
Yes.
idea. I share it with people all the time. When I was in
Nice.
Mexico, I told my masseuse about the podcast. I told the guy we rented jet skis from about the podcast because they're learning English and they speak English pretty well. I'm like, I work for a
Yes.
podcast. You should check it out.
Yeah, that's perfect. No, I love it. And imagine someone who believes in human connection, right? That's the kind of show that we put on here, and our listeners also believe in that value of we just want to
Yes.
connect, right? We know that we don't have to be perfect, but we just want to connect, and we'll get you there. So go ahead and click on that share button and share All Ears English with one person. All right.
Yes. And
Good.
we are today diving into all of these tenses we use when telling a story. We want you to be able to tell interesting, engaging stories. We did, like Lindsay said, we talked about reported speech. Stay to the end. We'll share what episode that was in case you missed it. But
Mhm.
when telling stories, you need to know what these different verb tenses are for so you know which to use.
Yes.
And we've done a lot of episodes where we dive into these specific verb tenses more deeply. We're going to give
Mhm.
you a very brief overview of several of them that we use the most often when telling a story.
All right, good stuff. So we're going to go through the grammar pieces, and then at the end of the episode, you're going to hear my story about something I did in Nicaragua, and we'll
Yeah.
pull out the pieces of grammar that I used. A very natural story. Okay.
Yes, exciting. Stay to the end so you don't miss that story.
Nice. All right. So first one we need for telling a story. What is it, Aubrey?
Yeah, present perfect. And this
Sure.
is often how we introduce a story. So, for
Yes.
example, I've always loved finding new restaurants. And last night, right? So I'm setting the
Mhm.
stage, I'm sharing how things have always been. I have always loved finding new restaurants. Present perfect.
Yeah, I think this is a very articulate way of telling a story, opening a story. I think I don't usually do this, but I sort of wish I did. I've always been a traveler, for example, right? I've always been
Yeah.
adventurous when I travel. This would be a smart way to open a story. I
It
usually
sets
just
the
go right to the thing,
stage.
though, but it does set the stage
I
nicely.
challenge you, Lindsay, to start doing
Okay.
this. I think you're going to find like, oh, okay, it was a better story. It set the stage. It gave a little background. It let someone know a little more about you as a person
Yeah.
and your life experience, right? That's why we're
Yeah.
using present perfect to talk about sort of things we've always done.
Yeah, because if you think of movies that are narrated, they bring you right into the psyche of the main character by sometimes doing that.
Yes,
The scene will
absolutely.
open and the darkness will come over the lens cover. I've always been this. I've always been that.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. Character
Good stuff.
development.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what it
Or
is.
I've read hundreds of books, but this one, right? So
Mm,
I have read. We've got that present perfect to set the stage a little bit.
good. All right. Now we also need another tense we need, Aubrey, is what?
Past simple. So this is
Yes.
finished actions in the past. So these examples are going to be threads that are continuing a story, right? So
Mhm.
the first one, I've always loved finding new restaurants. And last night, then we moved to past simple. I ate
Mhm.
at the best Thai restaurant. So we're moving
Yeah.
into the past simple to say something specific that happened in the past at a specific point in time.
Yeah, or just saying something like, "I absolutely loved it," right? I absolutely loved the food in Cambodia, for example. right?
Yes, or that story we're
Mhm.
continuing here. I've read hundreds of books, but this one I absolutely loved, right? Then we
Yes.
just need that past simple to share, "Oh, I loved this book."
But then the next thing we do, Aubrey, which I think is really dynamic, it's we pull people into the story by using the present tense. We pull the listener in by making it feel like we're doing the thing in that moment, but we're not. We're bringing them back to that moment, right?
Exactly, or stating facts that are always true. So, for example,
Okay,
this
yeah.
restaurant, it's right around the corner from my house, and it is seriously the best, right? So,
Yes.
I'm sharing I don't have to stay in the past saying what I ate and what we did, right? Now
Mhm.
I've moved into the present. Or the books I read books a lot, but this one seriously blew me away, right? I'm present
Mm.
tense. I read books a lot, but I love what you said as well.
Yes.
We pull them in and then picture it. We are
Yes.
in a parking lot and this woman arrives out of nowhere and we start using present tense to make it feel like it's happening right now.
Yes, exactly. Or, it's 5:55 a.m., my alarm goes off and I know
Right.
today's the day, right? So this is also present tense and the purpose of
Exactly.
this is a little different from that, right? It's pulling in the listener to that moment.
Right. We have set the stage and now we're bringing them and us to the present to make it feel like it's
Yeah.
real, it's happening right now.
But we also use the subjunctive for hypothetical situations. What would this look like, Aubrey?
Yeah. So maybe with this restaurant example, if I weren't wandering that area, I'd never have found this restaurant. So I use this hypothetical like, oh, if I hadn't been there, this would never have happened.
I love it. I love it. Or if you were to read just one book this year, it should be this one, right?
Yeah, so that example, oh, I read books a lot, but this one blew me away. If you were to choose just one book to read this year, right? You need the subjunctive
Mhm.
mood for this.
I love it. So good. So that's the one. And then there's still another. I can't even believe how many
So
tenses we
many.
use when we tell stories. It's incredible, Aubrey. We use conditionals too.
Exactly, right? If we want to express that one thing is contingent on another, or what might happen, or what might have happened, often this makes the story the most interesting. You can add
Hmm.
interest, right? For example, if that restaurant would do some marketing, they'd be busier. This is a conditional about,
Mm.
right? I'm saying it was dead. I'm worried it's going to
Yeah.
close down. If they would
Yep.
do some marketing, they would be
Hmm.
busier.
Or if they did marketing, they would be busier. If they marketed themselves, they would be busier, right? A lot of ways we could say that with the
Hmm.
conditional. Or I would have liked this book better if it were shorter. Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Long
this is
stories.
interesting. That starts with
Hmm.
conditional and ends with subjunctive. There are so many verb tenses here when we're telling stories. The most important thing is to pay attention when you are observing language, when you hear someone else tell a story. Notice all of the different verb tenses so that you can make your stories more interesting.
I love it. We're pulling in lots of tenses to keep it dynamic, make it
Yes.
interesting. That is the key. I think that's been a bit of a theme in the last few weeks, Aubrey, on this show is telling interesting stories, right?
Yeah, which is
Um,
great. We want you to be able to tell interesting stories, right? It's such a fun
yes.
connection skill.
So good. All right, Aubrey, we are back. What are we doing now?
All right, Lindsay, you are going to share with us a fun story, and I'm going to be jotting down, taking note of the verb tenses you use so that
Yes.
after your story, we can pull them out, highlight so we see all of the verb tenses you used. Mhm.
Okay. And how long should my story be, just so I'm clear?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, a couple minutes, 1 to 2 minutes.
Okay. All right, let's do
All
it.
right.
I've got something in mind.
Awesome.
I'm
Okay,
ready.
I'm
All right.
excited.
Okay, let's do it. All right, here we go. So, Aubrey, I've always been an adventurous person, but I never imagined that I would do what I did on this day. So I was in Nicaragua. I think I was in Managua or somewhere close to there. And after backpacking around for a couple of days, we realized that the thing to do in Nicaragua is volcano boarding. And not just volcano boarding, but active boarding. So Nicaragua is a country with a lot of volcanoes, right? A lot of seismic activity. And so we booked a tour to go volcano boarding. Have you ever heard of this before?
No, I have
Okay.
never heard of volcano boarding. I
This
can't
is
believe I
something that would
cannot
be
wait to hear
right up
about
your
this.
alley. Yeah. So I saw it. I saw videos of this of what you actually do, and just listen to this. This is actually what you do. What they do is they take the backs of refrigerators. They take because the refrigerators are slick, right? They're slippery. They take the back that coating off the refrigerator and they make it into a board. And so what you do is you book a tour, you get up in the morning super early, it's still dark out, you hop on a bus, you drive for 3 hours. So we're driving and the terrain is getting more bumpy and more bumpy. We get there, we put these refrigerators, not a full refrigerator, but it's our boards. We put them on our back. So we start hiking up this active volcano. And I'm always a little nervous about active volcanoes, right? Like, okay, let's just hope that today's not the day, that this volcano explodes, right? Because that just wouldn't be so convenient. So we hike up this volcano. We get to the top, and I watch the guide. He does the example, he goes down, and I'm terrified, Aubrey. I don't think I've been that scared before. I'm visibly shaking. I'm feeling my adrenaline is popping up, going throughout my body. And I'm thinking, how the heck am I going to control my board? Because this is a steep volcano, right? This is not like just an easy slope. And it doesn't look like you have much control. All you do is you just slap it down, put your butt on it, and you go. So I watch people go, and they seem like they're flying off, and someone is getting their speed with a speed gun. And then it's my turn. I'm one of the last ones to step up, and I'm thinking, I don't want to die in a volcano board, right? This isn't how I want to go. And so I put it down and I sit down, and I'm supposed to use my feet as brakes, right? That was how it worked. And I realized I had more control than I thought I did. And so I did go, but I ended up going really slow. I did like 15 miles an hour down the volcano. And then at the end, they had a list of speeds. And I think the fastest guy was 45 or 47 miles an hour. I was like 12.
And it felt 45 miles an hour. That is insane.
Yeah. Wild. So I was a little embarrassed about how slow I went, but I was so happy to see that I could indeed control my speed, and I wasn't going to die that day on that volcano. So
this is crazy. I've never heard of anyone doing that before. I think I would be a hard pass on that. And I feel like I'm an adventurous person.
But Aubrey, you've cliff jumped before. You've done way crazier things.
So scary. Maybe. If I were in that situation, I probably would be like, I got to try it. But man, that sounds scary. Okay. This
looked really scary.
Story.
Yeah.
Like for all of the verb tenses that came out. Okay. And you used quite a bit of present continuous, present progressive, which we actually didn't highlight. So I'm glad it came up in your story, because it really showed how much we do that as well, that we use present continuous also to pull people in, and it's like, this is a continued action. So they're part of the story, right? So let's go through this. So you started with present perfect to say, I've always been adventurous, but this was crazy. Love that as to introduce. Then immediately jumped into past simple. I never imagined, but this is actually a conditional, right? It starts with past simple and then conditional. I never imagined I would do this.
Yes.
So really interesting. And then I love, some more past tense. After backpacking, I realized. So we have the past simple there. And then we're moving into present. Nicaragua is a country that, right, you did a little bit of present simple to share these, facts that are always true. Yes. And so we use present simple for that. And then I love something you did where you say, just listen to this. Is such a great storytelling phrase to really build up excitement. Like, you're never going to believe this. No, just wait. Just listen. So good. And then you have present simple where you are bringing me into the story, bringing us into the story. They take the backs of fridges, you book a tour, you get up early, right? This is all present simple to so that we're imagining we're right there doing it with you, right?
What you do. Yes.
Yeah. And then you moved into present progressive or present continuous. You'll hear this tense called both. We have talked about it a lot here on the podcast, but we use it in stories. You said we're driving and then we start hiking, and you used a lot of, instead of saying we hike, we drive, right? It's a continued action. So you're going to use present progressive. And then I really loved when you were talking about how, this volcano could erupt. So you say, let's hope this is not the day, right? Yeah. This is what really makes the story great. Taking the time to add those interesting phrases and share your feelings. You were sharing that it was scary. Like, this could erupt at any moment. Don't hesitate to add that when you tell a story, guys, right? Add your feelings. Add what
add a little drama, right? I mean, I didn't really think it was going to erupt, but I knew it was an active volcano, which it could, right?
And it makes the story more interesting, right? It feels more death-defying that you're thinking it could, right?
Yes.
And then lastly, I want to point out when you used reported speech, reported thoughts in the past, you said, I'm thinking, how the heck am I going to control my board? Yes. And this is the episode we did recently. We want to make sure you don't miss it, because we do this a lot when telling a story. that
Okay.
will narrate our thoughts in the
Mhm.
past, narrate what we were thinking or what we said, and that really
Yes.
pulls someone in and makes it so much more interesting.
Yes.
Wow, that was a great story, and it's amazing how many different verb tenses you used.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, right? But
Yeah.
this shows our listeners really how natives speak, right? This is how we do it. We don't just stay in one tense, we move in and out of them depending on what we're trying to convey. Are we trying to pull people in? Are we trying to recount a series of events? I wake up, I get on the bus. How are we doing it? So good. So good.
Exactly. Right. Yes. So we want to make sure that when you guys tell stories, you're thinking about all of these things, right? That you
Mhm.
tell an interesting, engaging story. This is such a great connection skill, right?
Huge. Yes.
Way more important than if you're making grammar mistakes is that you
Mhm.
are engaging the people you're listening and telling these interesting stories.
Oh my gosh, you can still tell an incredible story while making some grammar mistakes. Obviously, not tons of grammar mistakes, but some, because there's a lot more resources that we have, like tone of voice, vocabulary, a lot of things we can do to set the stage. So, Aubrey, I think we'll be coming back to storytelling as a theme, in the future on
Absolutely.
the podcast. It's a great topic.
Yes, it's a vital
Mhm.
that yeah, we want you guys to be able to tell stories, but we want them to be interesting. We've all
Yes.
had that person telling us a story and our
Ugh,
eyes are glazing over, right? So
funny.
come back if you missed it. Don't miss All Ears English 2401, How to Be a More Interesting Storyteller. That's where we talked about narrating speech and thoughts in the past. This is vital. And then today's episode 2, use these strategies. Don't limit yourself to past tense, right?
Oh gosh, no, don't.
Be
Please don't. That'll
flexible
be
with your
so
verb
boring.
tenses.
Think
Yes.
about how boring that story would have been if the whole thing had been in the past tense.
I went to Nicaragua. We
I
rented
boarded.
boards.
There's so
We
much that I
went down the
couldn't
volcano.
say. I
No,
couldn't say,
exactly.
right? I'd miss all those details because they just don't
Yes.
make sense in the simple past. I
Right.
love it. Guys, if you love our style, go ahead and share the show with one friend. All right? Good
Love it.
stuff.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thanks for
Aubrey.
sharing your story with us, Lindsay. That was
Thanks.
awesome.
Thanks. Thank you for breaking down the grammar. Great
Yeah.
stuff. Well, I'll see you next time. All
Nice. See you
right?
next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.